candidate experience is still fundamentally broken. I think recruiters these days have become rec robots, and they're just carrying operational recruitment and forgetting around the human element.
So welcome to Hot Takes. I'm delighted to be joined by Craig Morgans, Head of Talent Acquisition at Halfords. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you.
How
Pleasure
are you
to
doing
be
today?
here. Very good, thank you.
Good. Nice journey?
It wasn't too bad. Yeah. Sailed through. I was up nice and early.
I heard you were here 2 hours early, an hour
Unfortunately, yes. Obviously, too excited for today. So, yeah, I beat the alarm this morning.
Very good. So let me talk to you about the format today. So what we'll do is you've brought some hot takes with you. I've brought some too. We'll go through them one at a time. I'll give it a rating of mild, medium, hot or extra hot. And we'll see who comes out on top. If you remember the last episode, the guest won. So we'll see how you do this time. Yeah. So let's get started. So you've brought some hot takes with you. What's your first hot take?
Candidate experience is still fundamentally broken. I think organisations, so many of them have optimised things like their ATS and their recruitment experience for speed, efficiency, governance, control, a race in terms of looking at things like time to offer, time to hire, that they've completely neglected the candidate experience, which then has a massive onward impact in terms of your brand, because so often the actual careers website or the recruitment experience and the recruitment process is the first time that some of those people may potentially touch your employer brand. So broken candidate experiences can potentially lead to customers not wanting to buy from you. Recruiters these days have become rec robots. So organisations are loading recruiters up as much as they possibly can. And they're just carrying operational recruitment and forgetting around the human element and those extra pieces of the journey, which is the nice to haves, the human pieces, the good conversations, the pieces of feedback that my team recently have is going the extra mile. So things like welcoming new starters into the organisation and actually spending time with them. So, recruitment doesn't finish when you offer that job. You have that engagement with that candidate all the way through that process. You shouldn't just leave it then at the front door when they join the organisation.
Do you think there's a problem in the industry where the sort of outside hype of joining an organisation through lots of employer brand and recruitment marketing doesn't meet or match what happens when a candidate gets into the building?
Absolutely. I think you hear it all the time. You see it on things like LinkedIn and social, etc. It's the Ron Seal moment is how I describe it to the team, which is, does the reality live up to what was sold on the tin?
And what can organisations do to change that? We see lots of social content where a brand is saying all of the best things about the organisation. They're never going to say the worst things or the things that they're doing to progress. The only way to really get better candidates is to showcase the realities of an organisation, right? If you're not showing that, you'll get a bunch of people that join, they see what it's really like, and they leave immediately because it's not what you sold them. How do you think organisations can challenge that?
I think classic EVP and employer brands are utilised as recruitment tools, and they shouldn't be. One of the reasons I joined the organisation was there's just so much to get my teeth into within this TA function, the transformation that we're on. So actually, if you're portraying yourself in the right way, you're going to potentially end up with the right people who want to come in and instigate change and take things on a journey.
Organisations are uncomfortable with real personality, and I think platforms like TikTok have exposed that. The average age of a TikTok user is 34. TikTok is a platform that's very search friendly. You don't even have to really have a sort of public facing platform anymore. You can just do ads at a certain audience. Making it part of that channel mix means that you're not missing out on an audience that you could have previously tapped into from talent perspective. We see lots of content and trends and themes start on platforms like TikTok. So the moment a brand ignores TikTok and they say, this isn't for us, that's the point where you say, actually keeping up with the zeitgeist and keeping up with what our consumers and our talent brand want, we're just not interested in doing that. We want to be behind. And I think that's probably an industry issue rather than an individual brand issue. But the problem we're seeing is that if you don't think forward, you will get left behind.
You're absolutely right in terms of perception issue and a worry that people are going to go rogue. and you're going to end up with content which is going to be more harmful and damaging than it is actually proactive and rewarding for the organization. Some of the best campaigns that I've seen from other organizations is actually playing to, so if you look at mechanics, what is the type of content that a mechanic would want to view? It's people working on cars, it's not people doing silly dances, right? So if you understand that, you can then start tailoring your messaging, tailoring the actual content that you can get out there.
There's a guy on TikTok who I followed for a while called The Roadside Technician. He essentially does lots of videos of him as a roadside technician, meeting customers, fixing cars, fixing vans. But it's all about the detail. Like, he's really detailed in what he's showing you. And I think partly he does it because he's super passionate about it.
I was going to use exactly that word.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's something that you can manufacture. That's something that a person who really likes their job and has been given the tools, he's gone out there of his own back, creating content, putting it online. He just happens to work for a company. Now, that's the total North Star for everyone. They want people like that in the organization. Now, if he worked for an organization that had shut that down immediately, or he felt like the guardrails were too high, he would never have made that, and they would never have got that kind of brand exposure that they've got. He's showing people the realities, right? He's not doing it from a corporate messaging perspective. He will say things like, I've been on the road for 6 hours, I'm tired, I can't wait to get home to my family. You know, those are things that people in his position think and feel every day.
Absolutely. I think we're quite lucky at this particular moment in time, because deep in that research and insight phase where we are at the moment, we are talking to loads of our employees. And one of the best things that have come out of this early stages of the project that we're working with you guys on is there's so much passion in this organization for what people do, the expertise that they bring to the table. So we're already identifying through focus groups and through one-to-ones a number of people who are very early stage in terms of you could be an employee advocate. So we're starting to think about how we bring that to life as part of that journey. So lots of organizations and leaders, in fact, still struggle to understand the true value of a well-defined and a well-executed employer brand. You know, it's a big life decision, changing career, but if you can weave in the storytelling, etc., into that strategy, you get that emotional connection with human beings.
How do you make sure that storytelling is a big part of it, whilst also filling the seats that you've got available? If you need 5 people right now, you need to have done the work 12 months ago,
12,
right?
Absolutely,
so yeah. it's that's where the challenge is. Just telling people something once and not hammering it home and not sprucing it up, it's just not enough anymore. You wouldn't see an advert for a mortgage and go and buy a house off of seeing that one advert, right? And it's the same in employer brand.
You look at storytelling, and it's been a thing since the Iron Age and all those types of things. And people used to sit around a campfire. People buy in emotionally to stories. I had an old HR director who used to be into us, which was tell somebody something 7 times and then it will go in. Consistency is key, you know, and looking at your TA, employer brand strategy, your social strategy, etc. It should be a continuous loop of an always-on mentality of how do we get these stories out to market. We need to think so differently in terms of how we market, job vacancies and stories from a recruitment perspective. But there's so much opportunity that's refreshing and quite exciting as well at the same time.
And particularly when you have a consumer-facing brand, I think you have a much bigger challenge in the industry, because you're having to play off against things that are totally out of your control.
It should work, not hand in glove, but side by side with a consumer brand. But there's so much, and the irony is there's so much focus on that consumer brand, the candidate and the employee brand sort of gets left behind sometimes. So I completely agree with that as well.
I think LinkedIn's more important than a traditional CV. I think LinkedIn was a channel traditionally where it became a bit of a CV hub, right? People would put their jobs on, they'd be looking for a job. You'd know when someone was looking for a job because they'd spruce up their LinkedIn, they'd do a few updates, and they'd get a job and they'd just leave it. LinkedIn then moved into a bit of a content machine of learning and developing skills and pumping out content and building your personal brand. But now it's it still is those things, but it's now leaning back into being that CV. You've said it before, but looking at someone's LinkedIn tells you a lot about them now. It tells you how much effort they're willing to put in, what content they produce, who they are, what qualifications they've got, what jobs they've had. It just gives you a better flavour. And you can see, like most of us can see a mile off something that's AI written, right, or AI generated. So, if you're looking for someone, if I'm hiring someone in the social team, I want to see someone who is interested in trends, insights, what clients are doing, what campaigns are out there. If I go on their LinkedIn page and I see nothing more than they might have liked something 3 years ago and they're not really engaged, it sort of tells me a story about that person. It's not that they're good or bad at their job, but it tells me about how they interact and what they do. And that's always going to give me lots more information than a blank, sorry, not blank, but a sheet of paper will. We need people and candidates to stand out and differentiate themselves more than ever. There must be nothing more frustrating for a recruiter than seeing 100 of the same CV over and over again.
It's a huge challenge, right? And real life example, we've faced into exactly that, which was 25 CVs for a role, all looked and felt exactly the same, and there was no differentiation. You've really got to think about it hard these days, especially in the high volume recruitment world where you're sitting against not 25 other candidates, but 200. What is that key differentiator for you and your personal brand, which is going to get you to stand out off a page? We've recently recruited into our team, and the people who have reached out on LinkedIn and done personal connections and personal messages, as well as, their CVs being authentic, etc., those are the ones who really stood out for us.
It's not working for anyone. It's just not working on either side. And so, there are tools out there where people can kind of put in a CV that's AI generated and it will apply for literally every job going ever. You may be better off just going out there and saying, let's just find people. Right, so you've brought 2 hot takes. I've brought mine. Let's do the scores. So your hot take on candidate experience being broken, I think that's somewhere between medium and hot. I feel like it depends on the organisation, but you're a guest here, so I'll give you a hot for that one. So your hot take around organisations and senior leaders still struggling to understand the value of employer brand, I think that's extra hot. You've proven here that there's still a lot we can learn in this industry. So my hot take around organisations being uncomfortable with real personality, I'd say that's hot. I think most people would like to think that they're showcasing some level of character online, but I think the reality is the candidate's still in the dark most of the time with the organisation they're joining. And a hot take around LinkedIn being the new sort of traditional CV, I'd say that's probably about medium. Most people probably feel sort of along those lines. I couldn't think of anything to say. Right, well, thanks very much for coming in, Craig. How was it?
Good conversation. Thank you very much. Been an absolute pleasure.
And obviously you are today's winner.
And being ultra competitive, super glad I've won. But thanks.